So this has been great so far. One thing a few of us were chatting at breakfast today just about a lot of the challenges in AI in general, and one of the themes that came up constantly was, hey, do marketers really understand the importance of data? We seem to just talk about AI, but what about the data piece? And so I'm glad we're transitioning into this section around data monetization. And so super glad to have Max Snow here. He leads Yobi, which we'll talk about in a second. He's been a great partner of Microsoft's, but more importantly, he's been doing some really cool things that's changing the industry in terms of how to leverage data and how to monetize data as a whole. So with that, I wanted to introduce Max. And Max, maybe I'll start with just, hey, can you just give us a bit on who Yobi is and a bit about your AI journey as a whole?
Absolutely. And it's great to be here. Thanks so much to Microsoft for having me. You know, at Yobi, we've built one of the largest proprietary consumer data sets to solve what is, we believe, one of the largest problems in AI, which is access to data. And I'm not talking about publicly available information that anyone could scrape.
Mike. Closer. Can you hear me?
Amazing. We're not talking about publicly available information that could be scraped and has been scraped by some of the large language model companies that exist. We're talking about private enterprise data that honestly a number of the companies in this room collect, the proprietary information that separates you. And what we believe the next generation of AI will be defined by is the use of this information, first-party data stemming entirely from banks, retailers, telcos, device manufacturers, and more, the companies that own that direct relationship with the consumer and can collect that consent. And we've seen firsthand in partnership with Microsoft how training models with access to that differentiated data can transform outcomes and capabilities from areas like personalization to media optimization to just in general being able to train broad predictive capabilities that are effectively able to understand customer intent at scale, regardless of loyalty status.
So I love that. One of the things we talked about earlier is just, I love the breadth of the types of customers you're going after. If you can, talk a bit about like some of the examples that you've seen as a whole, that would be great across different industries.
I think that's one of the big unlocks with AI, and I call it a horizontal data set, because when you're training a model that's rich with, call it transactional information or web search information, you're able to solve problems across domains, whether that's trying to figure out, how do I best personalize content for anonymous travelers visiting my, airline website, customers who are signed out that have never visited my site before, maybe haven't visited in a while. They are, in market, they're on my site, they want to transact, but my systems don't know how to identify them, and we're, disabled from being able to provide that level of relevance and recommendation that maybe some of our competitors can provide. We've seen being able to embed this information alongside first-party information as a massive unlock in being able to do that. Even look at, in a media optimization case, what Amazon's doing with Brand Plus, where you're able to unify not just what you watch, but what you buy, the places you visit, into a model that can broadly predict who is the next best customer to show an ad to. And so as we think about training these models to drive personalization or to drive media optimization really across use cases, the first question we want to always ask is, what is the underlying data that's being used, and are we using data across domain to best understand the customer journey, not just limited within the outcome we want to drive, but in all of the other, call it variables and indicators that are predictive of what someone's likely to purchase next.
That's great. One of the questions we get a lot on this is and one of the challenges is, hey, the ROI is hard to determine. In your model, in your interactions with the customers, how how you started to think about ROI. Like obviously, like there's different factors and variables to it, but like how would you get this room thinking about that piece of it as it comes to the data piece?
We think that AI is very real in the sense that, you know, all of the work that we do firsthand, or that call it, you know, we see folks in the industry, you know, spearheading, it's all measurable. At the end of the day, we're looking at AI from a sense of a point solution application. You know, let's say a very specific example of being media optimization. How can we best leverage this technology to close the loop on our advertising and continuously optimize and make recommendations? And when we think about that, these are all outcomes that can be measured and evaluated with existing measurement methodologies that brands use today. If we want to drive digital outcomes, we can use AI and we can use our measurement to understand how is this impacting customer acquisition costs? Are we reaching new users that we incrementally, let's say, weren't reaching before? And so I think we can apply traditional measurement approaches to understand how effective AI solutions are, whether that's in our media stack or call it downstream for personalization. We can hold out an audience and say, these are our control folks that aren't going to receive any kind of net new personalization, and here's 50% of the audience that's visiting our site, they're going to receive personalized content. And we can use these approaches to understand in a tangible way how effective this technology is for your business, for the metrics that really matter, like conversions, sales, and engagement.
That's great. Another challenge, data is sensitive. And so you get some complexity when working across different parts of the organizations, whether it's CISOs or whoever's responsible for like the ethical piece of the data and et cetera. How would you kind of talk to this group about how to navigate that piece within a company?
One of the hardest parts of my job here at Yobi is the data monetization portion of our business, where we have partnered with some of the largest retailers and telcos and have been able to access first-party data that has never been monetized before, that, you know, as a consumer, I didn't even think was possible to be monetized. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, the way we have to understand all risk and evaluating risk is what is the opportunity that exists on top. And more than that, you know, we always say that data monetization is synonymous with trust. In other words, that if the brand is unable to build that trust with the relationship, that isn't a sustainable data monetization program. And so as we think about how we effectively and safely share this information, or even potentially monetize it, we have to first start and ask, what is the relationship the brand or the business has to the customer? Do we have an effective privacy policy in place that allows us to collect this information, you know, or shared with named or specific partners? And from there, what we really want to care about is, are our vendors, are the partners that we're doing business with, are they de-risking the value prop around, call it embedding new information that you're not collecting first party, or even monetizing? Some of the things we do, you know, at Yobi are take on unique liabilities and risk on behalf of our customers and partners to be able to, you know, kind of ground the fact that we think accessing this missing data is fundamentally important for independent success with AI. But more than that, that companies should be able to create healthy data monetization businesses and also maintain that responsibility and trust with your customers. We really believe that when you think about data in the age of AI, you don't really need raw interpretable information anymore to drive signal from these models. What you need is to be able to derive value from that original data set. And so we believe the future value props of data monetization isn't the, you know, syndicating raw data out to different marketplaces, but being able to really de-identify and aggregate that data for joint benefit in a way where you can identify where the data came from, or, you know, who it originated with.
So I like that. The flip side is many of the folks in this room are in the first part of what you discussed. So how do you get from, hey, we have all this raw data, to what you're talking about?
Retail media has been a really big accelerator in companies' ability to think differently about the assets they're sitting on and honestly take a more commercial approach to either sharing it, selling it, or creating products out of it. And so we think a lot of this work in terms of transformation has already been happening, especially with retailers, financial services companies, around how we actually stand up effective privacy programs, as well as make the transparent communications that's necessary to build that trust with the customers and do this. And so for us, for companies that are pursuing or considering data monetization, the big thing is to always understand what is the market opportunity that exists in as real of a way that you can. And one of the things Yobi helps companies do is define what that market opportunity is without necessarily monetizing your data or sharing your data. What we can help do, similar to an EY or PwC, and many times in partnership with them, we can uncover the market value of the data. So as you have internal conversations with your general counsel and your privacy teams, you're able to ground this not in theoretical risk, but really in what is the realistic return I can see from my data. And we've seen in cases like telco or in retail, from Yobi specifically, the ability to create 8-figure businesses, almost overnight without additional headcount, the way that you would have to stand up a retail media program and invest in, a year to 2 years of development to be able to start making and start generating revenue. We believe that a lot of the companies in this room will benefit from AI because there is a shortage of data. And all of the companies, are looking at ways of how can we adopt AI. And data is going to keep growing as a need, especially, after DeepSeek, where GPUs and capital really aren't the moats anymore for AI. It's access to data. And so I really believe that as companies approach what is an incredibly financially lucrative opportunity, we can't do this blindly. We always have to, think first of what does our privacy policy actually allow. But I think there are incredible tools out there to help every company really define what is the total addressable market for your kind of data in a way that can be grounded with, committed and guaranteed revenue.
Love it. I did this, as I said, having Max on is really exciting. I've seen the impact he's had across many Microsoft customers. When he talks about building an 8-figure business overnight, super exciting. And so, that gives you kind of a high level on kind of what Yobi is, what we're doing. I did want to leave it open for some Q&A here. Otherwise, we can keep talking about data monetization. But I know I'm the only thing stopping you from lunch right now. So maybe I'll just quickly, if there are any questions on this, I'll open it up to the floor. Figured there would be a lot, so.
Can you share another data monetization use case? Just curious. Just walk us through one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we recently did a deal with one of the largest telcos in the U.S., and essentially the way we did this was, first what they wanted to understand is how much is my data set worth? My consultants are telling me this is $1 billion asset. My CEO is even tasking me, I have to now generate billions of dollars from my asset, and where do I even get started? And what we were able to do with this company was essentially understand how valuable that signal is across industry use cases. So as we think about it, is telco data relevant for Fiserv? Is it relevant for CPGs? Does the information they have impact media platforms? And what we're able to do is evaluate that data's quality across all of these different prediction services and prediction problems. And we can go back to the customer saying, this is how much you're able to lift predictive accuracy. And here's how much that's worth in each of these industries. What the company can then do is, in full control and discretion to them, define what are the limitations and restrictions we want to put on this data set, right? So typically companies will say, my competitors can't benefit from this in any way. And so we will then take what was originally a total addressable market and we'll create a service addressable market. And Yobi operates out of a rev share based capacity. So we create for you to analyze and dissect a 3 to 5 5-year financial projection around what this partnership could be worth based off of the restrictions and limitations and how it impacts, call it, these prediction problems across domain. And from there, our big commitment, as I said earlier, is we don't monetize raw and interpretable data. We don't believe that's necessary, and in fact, we think that puts the consumer at risk, the brand at risk, and us at risk. And so what Yobi does is we aggregate all of this information, right, across users, but we keep it at that individual level so that we can obfuscate all of the information around who this user is, as well as remove out all of the interpretable information of the data. And that allows our data partners to benefit from creating a retail media program, pursuing other first-party monetization initiatives, but also knowing and getting the guarantee from us that their brand won't be revealed or identified within our outputs, nor will their customers or the actual inputs they're providing. And so what we want to accomplish with data monetization is the ability to allow for first-party monetization, but keep that proprietary asset safe and secure. So we're only monetizing a derivative of it instead of the raw asset itself, if that makes sense. No, it's a great question. Have you ever read, there's actually a really great book called The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Professor Shoshana Zuboff. We make everyone, at our company read that book to understand, call it I would say what is an open ethical conversation that is continuing to evolve both through legislation and call it private company action. So I would say, that's really great reading material to just gives a great overview. But then, I think we just have to be hyper vigilant. One of the things that we want to make sure that at least companies, when we have the ability to influence privacy policies, we want to make sure that consumers retain the right to opt out, and that if they opt out of data collection, that the company doesn't take punitive action, against the user, like they're disabled from using certain services. Like I think at Google, it was like if you opted out of Google Nest, you can't control the temperature in your house anymore. And it's like, that's not the user experience we want to create. And, I think we want to maintain long-term partnerships with our data partners. We can't do that if they're creating negative consumer experiences or disabling consumers from, call it expressing independent choice. Well, the telco monetized their data with Yobi so that Yobi could then monetize their data with other companies looking to train, models around being able to do ad targeting, personalization. A telco has rich information around the types of apps we consume or our general web browsing. And so the idea is generally for them, they believe they have this asset. They're also interested in monetizing it. They want to figure out how can we accelerate those monetization goals with as few people, employed as possible to be able to do that. So we were able to help them monetize, through, call it a direct revenue deal, but they were able to also use, call it the data, to do everything from optimizing churn, and now they're leveraging the model around optimizing ad delivery for their app platform.
Are we on time? We're good?
3 minutes.
All right. Any other questions? Matt, Max, any other closing thoughts?
Once again, I think data monetization is going to be a really great opportunity for a number of folks in this room, and we really believe there's a world where you can monetize your data and preserve customer trust and really build transparent relationships with your consumers. We think there are two sides of the same coin, but at the end of the day, the ability to effectively adopt AI is going to come from data collaboration beyond first-party data, and we want to make sure there are safe and responsible ways to be able to access that missing data.
Awesome. All right, Max, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everyone.